December 11th, 2010. There's this cop with a cadaver dog, right? They're out on this completely desolate stretch of beach on Long Island, looking for a missing woman. Her name's Shannan Gilbert, 24 years old. She'd disappeared 7 months earlier after making this absolutely terrifying 911 call, where she's screaming that someone's trying to kill her. So they're out there searching for her body, expecting maybe to find her, maybe find nothing. Instead, they find 4 bodies. 4. All wrapped in burlap, like packages. All within a quarter mile of each other. And here's the thing that absolutely destroys me. That's not even the whole story. Over the next 4 months, they find 11 bodies total. 11. Some had been rotting there for years. Some of them still don't have names. Just Jane Doe. Unknown. Forgotten. And for 13 years, nobody got arrested. Case went completely cold. Families got no answers. Just nothing. Then, in July 2023, they finally arrest someone. And when I tell you who they arrested, and where he'd been this whole time... Look, I've covered a lot of true crime cases. This one is different. This one had me up at 3 a.m. going down rabbit holes because nothing about it makes sense until suddenly it all makes sense, and then you can't unsee it. So, let's get into it. All right, quick thing before we dive in. These are real people we're talking about. Real victims. Real families still dealing with this nightmare. I'm not here to sensationalize their deaths or turn this into some twisted entertainment. We're going to examine what happened, but we're doing it with actual respect for the people involved. And if you're in a bad situation, domestic violence, trafficking, whatever, there are resources in the description. Use them. Now, this case, the Long Island serial killer, Gilgo Beach murders, some people call it the Craigslist Ripper case. This thing is complicated. Like, unnecessarily complicated in ways that'll make you want to throw your laptop across the room. Multiple victims spanning years. Different police departments fighting over jurisdiction like it's a turf war instead of, murder investigations. And at the center, women, sex workers, people whose disappearances didn't matter enough to the system. That's the part that gets me. These women went missing, and the response was basically, well, what did you expect with that lifestyle? So yeah, let's start where this became public knowledge. Because the story actually starts months before those bodies were found, with a 911 call that'll make your skin crawl. So here's where it gets weird. Actually, scratch that. Here's where it gets terrifying. May 1st, 2010, 4:51 in the morning. Oak Beach, Long Island, this tiny gated community on the South Shore. Quiet place. Wealthy. Not where you'd expect. Well, you'll see. A 911 call comes in. It's Shannan Gilbert, 24 years old, from Jersey City. She'd driven out there to meet a client. She worked as an escort, found clients on Craigslist and Backpage. And this 911 call? 23 minutes long. 23 minutes. Shannan is begging for help, screaming that someone's trying to kill her. She's running from house to house in this little community, banging on doors like something out of a horror movie. Help me! Help me! People saw her, multiple neighbors. Some of them called 911 too. They watched this terrified woman running down their street in the middle of the night, clearly thinking she's about to die. Her driver, this guy Michael Pack, he's there too, trying to tell people she's just having a psychotic episode, she's fine, she's just freaking out. Which, okay, maybe he believed that, or maybe, I don't know, that whole thing is suspicious as hell. But then, Shannan runs into the marsh, the wetlands near Oak Beach, and she just vanishes. Gone. Nobody sees her again. Alive, anyway. Now here's where I start losing my mind with this case. Shannan's mom, Mari Gilbert, and we'll talk more about her because she's honestly the hero of this story. She immediately knows something's wrong. Her daughter doesn't come home. She files a missing persons report right away. And the police? The police basically shrug. Why? Because Shannan was a sex worker. Because she had a history. Because apparently, if you're not living a picture-perfect suburban life, your disappearance doesn't warrant the same urgency. This is something you see over and over in serial killer cases. Vulnerable victims, sex workers, addicts, homeless people, they disappear, and the system just doesn't care as much. It's disgusting, but it's the pattern. But Mari Gilbert wasn't having it. She pushed. She advocated. She made noise. She demanded they look for her daughter. Finally, in December 2010, 7 months after Shannan vanished, Suffolk County Police actually deploy K-9 units to search the area. Officer John Malia, his cadaver dog Blue, and they're out there combing through the brush along Ocean Parkway, this remote, desolate highway that runs along the beach. And that's when everything explodes. Blue, the cadaver dog, alerts to something in the undergrowth. Officer Malia pushes through the vegetation and finds a burlap sack, with skeletal remains inside. Female. Partially decomposed. But wait, it gets worse. Over the next 4 days, they find 3 more bodies, all within a quarter mile, all female, all wrapped in burlap, all dumped the exact same way. These women had been lying there, like 20 feet from a major highway, concealed in the brush between the road and the beach. And the way they were positioned, the way they were wrapped, it was obvious they were put there by the same person. One person. Methodical. Careful. Someone who knew exactly what they were doing. But it doesn't stop there. March and April 2011, they expand the search. They find 7 more sets of remains. Different locations along Ocean Parkway and nearby beaches. Some recent, some that had been there for years. 11 victims total. Different ages, different backgrounds, different decades even. But so many of them had one thing in common. They'd advertised escort services online. And one of them, the first one they found, still doesn't have a name. To this day, she's just Jane Doe number 6. Or Peaches, because she had this peach tattoo. That's all we can call her. Peaches. Some woman who lived and died and nobody knows who she was. So naturally, everyone's asking, is this one killer? Multiple killers? Is this some kind of serial killer dumping ground? And the biggest question, or the one that haunted everyone, who were these women? And why did it take so damn long for anyone to notice they were gone? Okay, so let's talk about the victims. And I mean really talk about them. Because here's what pisses me off about how true crime usually covers these cases. They turn people into statistics. 4 bodies discovered. The victims. Like they're just plot points in a horror story. These were people. They had lives, families, dreams. They weren't just bodies wrapped in burlap. So let's actually talk about who they were. The first 4 victims, the ones found in December 2010, they called them the Gilgo 4. Melissa Barthelemy, 24 years old, from Buffalo. She'd moved to the Bronx to study cosmetology. She wanted to do hair and makeup. And yeah, she advertised escort services to pay the bills, which, see, welcome to America, where sometimes you do what you have to do to survive. Melissa disappeared July 12, 2009. Met up with a client. Never came home. But here's the part that made my blood run cold when I first read about it. After Melissa vanished, Her younger sister Amanda started getting phone calls from Melissa's cell phone. But it wasn't Melissa. It was a man. And he would say things like, "Do you know what your sister's doing? She's a whore." Just taunting her. Multiple calls. He'd call from crowded places, Times Square, Madison Square Garden, where it was impossible to track him. Can you imagine? Your sister's missing, and some psychopath is calling you from her phone to mock you about it? Maureen Brainerd Barnes, 25. From Norwich, Connecticut. Mother of 2. She was doing escort work to support her kids. Again, not because she was living some glamorous life, but because she needed money, and this was how she could make it. Maureen disappeared July 9, 2007. Earliest victim we know of in terms of when she went missing. She left her motel in Manhattan after taking a call from a client. That was it. Megan Waterman, 22, from Scarborough, Maine. Young mom, fell on hard times, placed an ad on Craigslist. Vanished June 6, 2010, after leaving to meet someone. Amber Lynn Costello, 27, from North Carolina. Amber had struggled with addiction, but she was trying to get her life together. She lived in West Babylon with 2 roommates who actually heard her leave the house on September 2, 2010, to meet a client. She just walked out the door and never came back. Now here's what's chilling. These 4 women, they were all small. Petite. I'm between 4'10" and 5'5". They all advertised online. They all disappeared between 2007 and 2010. They were all found wrapped in burlap, dumped the same way, same location. This was clearly one person. Someone who had a type. Someone who was organized, methodical, careful. Someone who'd been doing this for years, and nobody had connected the dots. But the Gilgo 4 aren't the whole story. Not even close. When they expanded the search in 2011, they found more victims. And this is where things get really complicated. Jessica Taylor, 20 years old, from D.C. sex worker. Now, her remains were found at Gilgo Beach in 2011. But get this, other parts of Jessica's body? They'd been found 7 years earlier, in 2003. In Manorville, about 40 miles away. Someone had dismembered her and dumped different parts of her body in different locations, years apart. What kind of person does that? Valerie Mack, also known as Jane Doe, number 6 for years. Same story. Partial remains at Gilgo Beach. Other parts found in Manorville in 2000. She wasn't even identified until 2020. 20 years after she died. Then there's an unidentified Asian male, dressed in women's clothing. A toddler, between 16 and 24 months old. The woman who was probably the toddler's mother, known as Peaches because of her tattoo. She still hasn't been identified. Another Jane Doe, so decomposed they couldn't tell us anything about her. 11 victims. Some connected, some maybe not. Different dump sites, different time periods, different everything. It was an absolute investigative nightmare. And then there's Shannan Gilbert. Remember her? The woman they were originally looking for? Her body wasn't found until December 2011, more than a year after the search started. They found her in a marsh near Oak Beach, not far from where she was last seen. Official ruling? Accidental drowning. Police said she panicked, ran into the marsh, and died from the elements. Case closed. Her family never bought it. A lot of people never bought it. But that was the official story. Whether Shannan's death was connected to the serial killer or not. And honestly, I have my own thoughts about that. Her disappearance is what cracked this whole thing open. Without her 911 call, without her mother refusing to give up, those bodies might still be rotting on Ocean Parkway. And that's what gets me. How many more are out there? How many other Peaches and Jane Does are buried somewhere, forgotten, because nobody cared enough to look? Okay, so now we get to the part that makes me want to scream into a pillow. The investigation. Or should I say, the absolute clusterfuck that was this investigation. From the very beginning, from day one, this thing was doomed. And I'm not even exaggerating. First problem, multiple jurisdictions. The bodies were found in Suffolk County, but victims were last seen in different areas. FBI wants in. Local cops are territorial. Nobody's sharing information properly. It's like watching toddlers fight over toys, except these are murder investigations. Second problem, how many killers are we dealing with? The Gilgo 4? Obviously connected. But the dismembered bodies in Manorville? The toddler? The Asian male? Are we talking about one killer or multiple killers using Ocean Parkway as their personal dumping ground? Some detectives think it's multiple killers. Others are convinced it's one guy. Nobody can agree. So leads go nowhere because half the team is investigating one theory while the other half is chasing something completely different. And the third problem, oh, this is the best one, is that when these women were first reported missing, nobody took it seriously. Families called in missing persons reports. My daughter's gone. My sister didn't come home. And the response? Well, she's a sex worker. They disappear sometimes. She's probably just on a trip. She'll turn up. This is the pattern you see over and over. Green River Killer, Highway of Tears, dozens of cases. Vulnerable victims, sex workers, drug users, people on the margins, and they disappear, and law enforcement just doesn't prioritize it. It's not until bodies start piling up that anyone pays attention. And by then, the killers had years to perfect their method. So, over the years, there were suspects, persons of interest. Let's run through them. James Bissett, carpenter who worked in Oak Beach, had a criminal record, had access to burlap, which, okay, lots of people have access to burlap, but it was something. They looked at him hard, never charged him. Nothing stuck. John Bitrolf. Now, this guy, he actually was a serial killer. Arrested in 2017 for murdering 2 sex workers in the 90s, Rita Tangradi and Colleen McNamee. Bodies found in the same general area. For a minute, everyone thought, this is him. This is the Gilgo Beach killer. Makes sense, right? Guy who kills sex workers in the same area? Nope. DNA didn't match. M.O. was different. He was a killer, but not their killer. Then there was all this scrutiny on people in Oak Beach. Joseph Brewer, the guy Shannan Gilbert went to meet that night. Dr. Peter Hackett, this neighbor who allegedly called Shannon's mom and said he'd treated Shannan. Which what? He denied making the call, but phone records suggested otherwise. People were convinced one of these Oak Beach residents was involved. Internet sleuths were all over this. Conspiracy theories everywhere. But again, nothing. No arrests, no charges, just theories and suspicions and dead ends. By 2015, the case was ice cold. And here's why. The Suffolk County Police Department was dealing with its own corruption scandal. Police Chief James Burke, who'd been involved in the early stages of the Gilgo investigation, got arrested in 2015. Why? Because he beat a suspect, then orchestrated a massive cover-up to hide it. He went to prison. But here's the kicker. Burke had reportedly blocked the FBI from helping with the Gilgo Beach investigation. He was territorial, secretive, paranoid. He wanted Suffolk County to handle it alone. So you have to wonder, how much did his ego, his corruption, his need for control, how much did that screw up this investigation? How many leads were missed? How many chances did they have to catch this guy that were wasted because of departmental politics? Meanwhile, the families got nothing. No answers, no progress, just year after year of silence. And Mari Gilbert, Shannan's mom, the woman who started all of this by refusing to give up, she was tragically killed in 2016 by her other daughter, Sarah, who was suffering from severe mental illness. The case felt cursed, like everyone connected to it was touched by tragedy, like justice was never going to happen. Investigators moved on to other cases. The media stopped covering it. The families held on to hope, but you could feel that hope fading. The Long Island serial killer had gotten away with it, or so it seemed. Because in 2022, something changed. A new task force was formed. New investigators who didn't have the baggage of the old cases, and they had something the original investigators didn't have. Better technology, better DNA analysis, better cell phone tracking. They went back to square one, back to the evidence. The burner phones that called the victims, the burlap, the DNA left at the scenes, and they started building a profile. Not of some mysterious monster, not some reclusive loner, but of a man who'd been hiding in plain sight the entire time. The arrest, July 13th, 2023. Manhattan. They arrest a guy named Rex Heuermann, 59 years old, architect, lives in Massapequa Park, Long Island, has a wife, kids, runs his own architecture firm, and they charge him with murder. 3 counts initially. 3 of the Gilgo 4, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello. They also said he's the prime suspect for the 4th, Maureen Brainerd Barnes. When I saw this, when I saw who they arrested, I literally had to do a double take. Because Rex Heuermann? This guy wasn't living in some remote cabin in the woods. He wasn't some mysterious loner with no connections. He was living in Massapequa Park, a suburban neighborhood. Minutes from where he'd dumped the bodies. And he was going to work every day in Manhattan, running a business, coming home to his family, living this completely normal suburban dad life. Neighbors described him as weird. Okay, yeah. Big guy, 6'4", over 300 pounds. Unkempt. Awkward. Kind of intimidating. But weird doesn't equal serial killer, right? There are lots of weird, awkward people who don't murder sex workers. But this guy? This guy had been doing this for years, right under everyone's noses. So how did they finally get him? After 13 years? What broke the case? Number 1. Cell phone records. The new task force used advanced cell tower analysis, technology that wasn't as sophisticated back in 2010, to track the burner phones that had contacted victims before they disappeared. And here's the thing that sealed it. These burner phones were active in locations where Heuermann lived and worked. They'd go silent when his wife and kids were home. Then they'd become active again when his family left town. Think about that. The phones were only active when his family wasn't around, like he waited until they were gone to go hunting. Number 2. Internet searches. They pulled his search history, multiple email accounts, searches from his home computer. Gilgo Beach investigation. Police tactics for DNA evidence. How long does it take for a body to decompose? And child pornography. Violent sexual content. All kinds of depraved stuff. All traced back to him. From his home. His accounts. Number 3. DNA evidence. Okay, this is the part that gets me. This is how they actually confirmed it was him. A pizza box. They followed him in Manhattan, waited until he threw away a pizza box, and recovered it from the trash. DNA from the pizza crust, where he'd bitten into it, matched DNA found on the burlap that wrapped the victims. But wait, there's more. A hair found on one of the victims was matched through mitochondrial DNA to either Heuermann's wife or daughter, which means, at some point, that victim had been in his house or his vehicle. Number 4. The vehicle. Remember witnesses reported seeing a large pickup truck near where Amber Costello was last seen? Heuermann owned a Chevrolet Avalanche. Matched the description perfectly. All the pieces were there. They just needed the technology and the fresh eyes to put them together. In the months after his arrest, more details came out. Investigators found files on his computer, like planning documents for murder. He had information about his victims, notes about how to avoid detection, searches about body decomposition, police investigation techniques, how to dispose of remains without leaving evidence. This wasn't some crime of passion. This wasn't someone who snapped. This was premeditated, calculated, methodical murder. He was studying this, planning it like it was a project. In 2024, they filed additional charges. They started looking at his possible connection to the other victims: Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, the women whose bodies were scattered between Gilgo Beach and Manorville. Now, Rex Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to all charges. He maintains his innocence. His trial is still ongoing as I'm recording this, but prosecutors believe they've got him. They think after 13 years of this guy walking free, living his life, going to work, coming home to his family, they've finally caught the Long Island serial killer. The scary part: how normal he seemed, how long he got away with it. How many times did people pass him on the street? How many times did he sit in traffic, drive past police checkpoints, live his normal life while these families were suffering? While these women's remains were rotting 20 minutes from his house? That's what keeps me up at night about this case. Not just that it happened, but that it happened for so long, right in front of everyone. Look, I've spent weeks researching this case, reading court documents, watching depositions, going through timelines, and there are some things about it that just won't leave me alone. First thing, we failed these women. I'm not talking about any individual person. I'm talking about the system, our society, all of it. These women went missing, and the response was basically, well, that's what happens in that line of work. Like they deserved it somehow. Like their lives mattered less because of how they paid their bills. And before anyone starts with the "they made bad choices" argument, no, just no. Most of these women were doing what they had to do to survive, to feed their kids, to pay rent. They weren't living glamorous lives. They were surviving. And they deserved the same police response as anyone else when they went missing. They deserved to have their cases taken seriously immediately, not after bodies started piling up. Second thing, this case shows what happens when people refuse to give up. Without Mari Gilbert pushing and advocating and making noise, would they have ever searched for Shannan? Would they have found those other 4 bodies? That woman fought like hell for her daughter. And in doing so, she exposed a serial killer. She gave other families answers they'd been waiting years for. That's not nothing. That's everything. And those new investigators in 2022 who said, "Let's try again with fresh eyes and better technology." They're why Rex Heuermann got arrested. Not because they were smarter than the original investigators, but because they didn't give up. Third thing, and this is the part that genuinely scares me, Rex Heuermann was normal. He wasn't some obvious monster. He was a guy in his 60s running a business. He had a family. He lived in suburbia. He probably waited in line at Starbucks behind you, and you'd never know. That's terrifying. Not because it means everyone's secretly a serial killer. They're not. But because it means we can't spot them just by looking. The guy who seems weird? Probably harmless. The completely normal-seeming family man. Maybe the one you should worry about. Of course, we still don't know everything. Is Rex Heuermann responsible for all 11 victims? Just the Gilgo 4? What about the dismembered bodies, the toddler, all those other Jane Does? And Shannan Gilbert, was her death really accidental? Or was she his first victim, the one who got away but whose disappearance eventually led to his capture? I have my theories. A lot of people have theories, but we might never know for sure. The investigation's ongoing. Maybe we'll get more answers. Maybe we won't. But what we do know is that the families of these victims will never get complete closure. Their loved ones are gone. Years were stolen from them. Pain was inflicted that never should have happened. And that's something we can't fix, no matter how many arrests are made. The Long Island serial killer case is a tragedy. Full stop. It's a tragedy for the victims. It's a tragedy for their families who had to fight to be heard. It's a tragedy that it took 13 years for any kind of justice. But it's also proof that persistence matters, that new technology can crack old cases, that families who refuse to give up can change everything. Melissa, Maureen, Megan, Amber, Jessica, Valerie, and all the others, they deserved so much better than what they got. They deserved to be protected. They deserved to be taken seriously when they went missing. And we owe it to them to actually learn from this. To listen when families say someone's in danger. To value all victims equally, to no matter who they are or how they lived. To remember that behind every cold case, every statistic, every body found, there's a person. Someone who mattered. Someone who still matters. They still matter. That's what I want you to take away from this. Not just the horror, or the mystery, or the true crime drama of it all, but that they mattered, and they still do. All right, so if you made it this far, first of all, thank you. I know this was heavy. I know it's a lot. If you found this valuable, if you learned something, or if this made you think differently about these cases, hit the like button. Genuinely helps more than you'd think with getting this content to people who are actually interested in deep dives like this. And subscribe if you want more of this kind of thing. I've got cases coming up that are equally wild and equally frustrating in terms of how they were handled. Drop a comment and tell me, what do you think about Shannan Gilbert's death? Accident or connected? Do you think Heuermann is responsible for all 11 victims, or just some of them? And seriously, if there are other cases you think I should cover, let me know. I actually read the comments. That's where half my video ideas come from. One more thing. If you or someone you know needs help, domestic violence, trafficking, dangerous situation, there are resources in the description. Hotlines, organizations, places that can actually help. And if you want to support organizations that help sex workers stay safe or that advocate for victims' families, I've linked to some good ones below. No pressure, just if you're interested. Thanks for sticking with me on this one. It was rough to research, but I think it's important that people know these stories. Not just for the shock value, but because these were real people whose cases deserved better from the start. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.